I want to do a little bit of a follow-up about the Will Smith slap of Chris Rock during the Oscars on Sunday night. The American right wing seems to have lost its mind and are delivering bizarre take after take about what happened or what didn't actually happen on Sunday night. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit in a little bit about kind of what my now having had a chance to think about it more, what my view is on what happened on Sunday night. For those of you who don't know, Chris Rock during the Oscars made a joke about Will Smith's wife's short hair, which is the style she chooses because she has alopecia, baldness. And Will Smith didn't like it. And he walked up to Chris Rock during the Oscars and slapped him in the face and then yelled, "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth." It was an insane situation. And I'm going to talk about my thoughts in a moment. But first, let me show you some just bizarre takes. Cultural critic and arbiter of ideas Dave Rubin said that if it had been a white person who did the slap, then everybody would have gone crazy, and he's mad about that. So he's upset about how people would have reacted in a different situation. It's what are you even talking about, dude?
But because they know no one's paying attention, would you put it above the machinery of Hollywood?
What?
To fabricate something like this? That Chris Rock makes a fairly innocuous joke. I mean, she's got a shaven head, and I'll talk more about alopecia in a sec, as I said. And that Will Smith so loses control. He's laughing at the joke at first, that he so lost control of himself that on an evening where he knows millions, even though it's not as many millions as it used to be, millions of people are watching, that he so lost control of himself that he walks up on stage calmly. He didn't bum rush the stage, right? He walks up there, smacks the guy, and just sits down. No security came and got him.
So far, he's spot on. I like this analysis so far.
Nobody, apparently during the commercials, there were some PR people saying something to him. But, we could also add like the weird woke element of race to this. So it was black on black violence, which people obviously treat a little bit differently. I suspect that
woke element. What?
If Matt Damon had gotten out of the crowd, very pasty white Matt Damon had gotten out of the crowd and smacked Chris Rock, there would be riots in the streets.
Okay, so now it's just completely unhinged. Yeah, it's not going to be, if it was Matt Damon who slapped Chris Rock, you were not going to see the Rodney King riots or anything like that. So the woke aspect of this, just a bizarre take. He's mad about how people would have reacted to something that didn't happen. How is that a story? Then we go to Fox News, where Donald Trump's former press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, compared what happened to when Michelle Wolf joked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders and right-wingers were mad, and it has nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Would have stopped him, I would hope, but because he's Will Smith, they just don't?
Yeah, I think Trace made the key point. If it was a fan, it'd be totally different treatment than it would be for a celebrity. And also, I think very different scenario when you think to, I couldn't get out of my head as I watched this, the White House Correspondents Association dinner from 2018, where Sarah Sanders was so maliciously attacked. You had Samantha Wolf, or B, whatever the heck her name is, Michelle Wolf, going after Sarah Sanders for her appearance. And minutes long, excruciating detail. And I watched Sarah Sanders sit there, my predecessor, with such grace and poise and kindness, and just sit there and take it. Because if you're a Republican woman, you got to take it. If you're a celebrity, you engage in this behavior and you'll have people come to your defense. Jamal Bowman, another congressman, came to the defense of Will Smith. You had a CNN commentator who actually blamed this on Donald Trump coming to Will Smith's defense. But if I just may make this one ancillary point, just like I didn't like the jokes about Sarah Sanders, I did not like that joke about Will Smith's wife. I had a friend who I grew up with who had alopecia, and I just thought it was totally out of bounds.
Okay, so again, it really isn't. Whatever point she's trying to make is not landing, and it's always somehow about wokeness and people and criticizing and double standards with conservatives. Last clip here. This is Sunny Hostin from The View, not a right winger per se, but sort of sometimes a contrarian on that show, or maybe compared to the others. In any case, she talks about how this was an instance of toxic masculinity.
And I think that when that type of thing, when you live publicly, you don't have the right to all of a sudden decide to execute violence. And I have to say, that was a show of toxic masculinity. If he was offended and felt emasculated by Regina Hall's joke or by Chris Rock's joke, you don't act out in violence. That is not a show of love. That's a show of violence. And I think that...
And then lastly, Kyle Becker, the CEO of Becker News, a former Fox News producer, tweeting, "If Will Smith was a white guy, he would have been let out of the Oscars in handcuffs. Then police would have thrown him in jail. There would be 1,000 media hit pieces about him being racist. He would be canceled for life. Instead, he won Best Actor. That's privilege." And of course, that's also untrue. Chris Rock declined to press charges, and that's sort of it. So I have to tell you, there are little pieces of what these people said that actually do make a lot of sense. What we have here was maybe a distasteful joke by Chris Rock, and then a physical attack. These are not on the same playing field. It's Will Smith is right to be completely humiliated by what he did. It's embarrassing, number one. Number two, even if indeed Will Smith was sort of standing up for his wife, she was not in any kind of physical danger, right? Physically slapping someone would be legitimate to stand up for your wife if it's a defense to a physical attack. There was no physical danger. And number three, it is notable that no security get involved in any way. Now, I know that it's easy to say, well, security would never think that Will Smith's going to slap Chris Rock. There's no reason that they would do that. Okay, but it is also kind of reflective more generally of the Academy staff did nothing to prevent this in any way. They didn't make any effort to explain why Will Smith stayed in the building after a physical attack. The physical attack is completely out of bounds. And as a big Will Smith fan myself, he should be completely humiliated by what happened here. At the end of the day, this whole thing about, well, the joke was very off color. I don't disagree. The joke was off color. You're sitting in the front row at the Oscars. This is what happens at the Oscars. There's a roast element. There's a roast aspect to this. These people make millions and millions of dollars. You can take a bad joke. You don't need to go and physically slap someone. And Will Smith is unilaterally in the wrong there. We'll have these clips on our Instagram at David Pakman Show, where you can also let me know your thoughts about my analysis. One of our sponsors today is Blue Chew, a unique online service delivering the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And they're giving my audience an entire month's supply for free. So if you think you could benefit from an extra boost of confidence when it's time, all you have to do is take a short quiz on their website. A licensed doctor approves your prescription. The medication comes straight to your home within days in a discreet package. No driving around to the doctor's office or the pharmacy. No waiting around. No awkward conversations with your doctor. All of Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. The entire process is just a few clicks. Go to bluechew.com. The link is underneath this video. They'll give you an entire month's supply for free when you use the promo code PACMAN. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping.